is a former Special Forces sniper turned CEO of 7th Level and the founder of Sales Sniper.
We went from startup to 1.5 a month in 2 years. A high performance team is not a team of rock stars.
Welcome to the Zeroed In Podcast. I'm your host, John Lalonde, a seasoned real estate investment expert and former Marine recon sniper. This podcast is designed for those seeking effective strategies to increase revenue growth through strategic hiring, leadership, and effective tracking. Our focus here is clear and direct. We provide actionable insights from successful founders and growth experts. Whether you're establishing a new business or aiming to scale an existing one, our episodes offer the essential advice you need for practical business growth. Lock and load, zero in, and get ready to scale. Today, our episode on the Zeroed In Podcast, we have Matthew Ryder. Matt is a former Special Forces sniper turned CEO of 7th Level and the founder of Sales Sniper. So today we're going to talk about what attributes a top sales performer has, how to identify them. We're going to talk about some sales leadership stuff, and then stay tuned till the end where we talk about what you need to know that you probably don't know a CEO does running a $75 million a year business. $75 million, or are you guys higher than that now?
No. We've done about $75 million in total over the last 3 years.
75 million in total over the...
Yeah, we're climbing up there. We're not there on the per year. Thank God.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we will jump right in. Matt, so I know you talk about Rich Diviney's book, Attributes, and another one of our podcasts. Can you explain what attributes are versus like bullet points on a resume? And then what attributes that you typically see in top sales performers?
Yeah, for sure. So attributes are more, they're more linked to behaviors, right? Okay. And so, things in a CV, I think there's something to be said for a good resume, a good CV. I don't think that it's a bad thing, but I don't think it's going to give you the level of behaviors that you want. So for salespeople, I think that it's less relevant. I think it's good to see experience and where they've worked and what they've done, but it's not like they're looking for some sort of formalized education. You know what I mean? Because there just sort of isn't one. You can get a marketing degree, but you can't get a sales degree, which is kind of weird.
Right.
And then from there, so I'm looking for what courses they've done off their own back. But then I'm really looking for what can I link back to a set of behaviors that I want, because with salespeople, it's about activities and behaviors. That's really about it. And so, if I want to see, I'm going to create some scenarios for them and try and have an understanding as to how they're going to react to them. I want someone who's a bit cunning. So cunning is an attribute that's all about problem solving, right? They don't necessarily have a look at a problem that's in front of them and go a cunning person goes, okay, what's the box that I'm in? And then I go, what happens if what are the consequences if I break the box? You know what I mean? Okay. And so salespeople, usually the more problem solving a salesperson is, and the sort of more looking to game the system a salesperson is, the more effective they're going to be, because they're looking to get a really good outcome, and they're not there's a particular set of constraints in front of them. They can sort of work their way around them or work with them or potentially sometimes break them in order to kind of get a really good outcome, which isn't a bad thing, right?
How would you find that out, or what questions would you ask during an interview to be able to tell if someone has those attributes?
Yeah, the difficult thing with hiring is you can't do personality assessments beforehand. You can't do any of that stuff, right? So for me, one of it is just giving them a task to do on the so setting up prior and saying, hey, listen, this is the backstory. This is what I want you to give me a brief presentation on. This is the medium I want you to do it. This is the length of time you have. And then when they get there, change the medium and shorten time. Hey, so instead of doing a 10-minute PowerPoint, you're going to do a 5-minute just talk, right? So you have 5 minutes to do this, right? So you switch it really quickly. That'll tell you what their adaptability is like, because sales is a highly adaptable. You have to be highly adaptable, right? If you're very rigid in your process and how you have to do things here for you to be successful, sales is too fast of an environment for you, right? And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. If everybody was like that, it'd be a nightmare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another thing that I do is I always give, like, I always want to see if they're going to handle objections. So I'll tell them no. Hey man, I already know this is a good fit. You know, yeah, I'm not sure that I'm not really sure this is the good sort of timing. I might have to go and check with the partners. And then, like, if they just go, oh yeah, but if they don't get the clue that that's their time to sort of go for it, then like I don't really know what to do for you.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things about that because I do the same thing when I'm interviewing salespeople, and maybe it was the wording, but I would say, hey, as of right now, I'm not convinced that you have what it takes to find success here. That's how I would word it, and I
What it
ran it
takes is
by.
it's a bit of a defensive stance. You know what I mean?
That's what I was told too. So how do you word it differently? How exactly do you word that to kind of still challenge them?
I mean, I think I've said it in a lot of different ways, but I've said like, I'm not 100% sure that this would be a good fit right now. And
Okay.
I'll sort of try and do it in a way where a prospect would do it. I might need to go back and check with my partners and some other guys in the division just to see, if this is going to work out.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like leave it there and like let it linger and just see
Yeah.
what they do. Because if they just retreat straight away, the chances of them being a good sales rep, I think, is pretty low.
Right. Now, you said something interesting. You said that you can't PI them, you can't do a personality index before you hire them. I've
Yeah.
never heard that before, and I break that rule right now, and I'm sure
Well,
I know
you
for
are
a
in
fact I'm
Colombia.
not the only one. But and most of my sales reps, actually all of my sales reps are in the United States. So
Yeah, yeah.
what am I breaking? And why can you not do personality index
There's just
prior
labor laws.
to?
You can't ask
Okay.
gender, sex, marital status. You can't ask, like, there are a lot of things you can't ask. And so you also you can't give like behavioral assessments prior.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You can do
Yeah.
them during. So like you can do that like when someone's hired, you can do the Myers Briggs on them and you can do all that kind of stuff. But you can't hire because then like they think it's going to be discriminatory because you're sort of trying to weed out a particular demographic. Whether you know
Okay.
what I mean? Whether maybe not like a racial demographic, but a demographic of thought, I suppose, which
What?
would lean towards you have sort of a certain way of doing things, and every state's different as to what you can and can't do beforehand. But it's not the state the business is in; it's the state it's the state the recruits in.
Okay. And
That
so
that
let's
becomes a
say,
difficulty.
and what do you use for your companies? Do you use culture index? Do you use PI?
We use Rich Diviney's attribute assessment.
Okay. Now let's say you hire somebody, right? And
Yeah,
you find out that their attributes, like after doing the test, maybe this doesn't happen often, but you find
yeah.
out they're actually complete opposite of what you were looking for. What do you do then?
I think what separates a really good boss and a really good CEO and a not so good one is speed to fire. Um,
Okay.
Speed to fire is really important. Like, if someone's not right for the position, they just shouldn't be there. So, like, if someone's underperforming, if someone's not the right fit, if someone's like, it's just not going to grow or be there for a while or be able to succeed massively, just fire them. Like, it does no one any favors to have someone be in a position for 6 months too long,
Yeah.
or move them to a different department. One of the stupidest things that I see all the time is when someone does a bad job, they promote them. It happens all the time, man, because like they'd rather go, well, they've been here for a while and yeah, they've been shit in the bed for the last 6 months, but like they're such a nice guy. So what we'll do is we'll promote them to a different area where they can shit the bed equally as bad or have more
Yeah.
responsibility and do even a worse job. And then from there, the resentment builds up and you fire them. So like for us, each department has a different set of attributes, which each department head went through and kind of went through.
Yeah.
And we've only really been even half decent at this over the last, I would say, like 6 to 8 months. Like before that, we hired super reactively. It was just sort of like getting people in whenever we could, like, and what that led to is just it slowed everything down tremendously because we were having to sort of like replace people constantly. And so when we slowed down and we took the time to do an attributes assessment and really think about like what was a good, not personality type, but it's like what are the key behaviors that we want to see within each department, and then like like what is required for a sales rep, it's not required for a customer service rep, it's not required for a finance person or admin person, right? They're just different beasts. And so like, but you also like, you don't want everyone to be the same. So like, you don't want, like if you have 10 attributes, there's 47 on Rich's list, I think. If you don't want everyone to have like all the same 6. Like you want to have a well-rounded crew, because like a high performance team is not a team of rock stars. You know what I mean? Like an all-star team doesn't perform as good as the best teams, you know, because like the best team is crafted, you know, to be an amazing team, to be a high performance team. I think that's why Rich's stuff was so interesting to me. I don't know if you worked with DEVGRU at all or anything like that, but
No.
like, so DEVGRU, like the big difference that I saw between like, say like SEALs and like DEVGRU or like, you know, ODA range and stuff like that is that like SEALs was crafted to be like a very well-rounded unit of people. Like they weren't all the same, whereas DEVGRU was like all the same. I didn't have a lot to do with them, but I met them a fair few times, and they had like a hyper religious group. They had, you know, like the whole, you know, they were very segmented. So like they're to be like the very similar. Some teams were like huge, some teams were tiny, but they were all very similar human beings. They all had similar. So like you had a team of identical people, which was like less cohesive. It was still a very effective fighting unit, obviously, but in terms of like the dynamic and the culture, it was a very odd sort of thing to behold and experience. But when you see like the SEALs that were crafted to be a high performance unit, like of like well-rounded individuals that sort of everyone played off each other's strengths and weaknesses, like that created a much better, like, you know, I guess a more fun and like culture, you know what I mean? Like a more inviting culture. So that's what you really want to do with like a sales team in particular, because they are a sports team and you do need your 3-point guy. You need your guys ready at the foul line. You need guys who can drive. You need guys who can create space. You need guys who can pass. You need guys who can, you know, play defense. Like if all you have is like fucking a team of James Hardens, like you're going to score a lot of points, but you're going to get a hell of a lot more scored against you.
And what would be the difference in attributes in salespeople? Because, you know, in a sniper team, you've got your point man, you've got your radio operator, you know, you've got your team leader, your ATL. However, on a sales team, all of the salespeople have relatively the same KPIs. And maybe it depends if you've got like an inbound sales team, you know, an outbound sales team. Let's say you just have an inbound sales team. Are you still looking for diversity inside that team? Or are you okay with having a bunch of, hey, everybody walks and talks the same inside this team. However, our outbound team, they have different attributes.
No, I think what you want to do, again, I think like, you know, the goal for everybody at a basketball team is to put the ball in the hole, right?
Yeah.
But like you need a different, you have strengths and weaknesses, right? So what you want to do is create a team that everyone can play their role, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, you need also like the big thing that comes into play is like they're not all going to be the same level of ambitious. Like that's a big mistake. Everyone thinks that all the salespeople are going to want to get to whatever the number of the month is, right? 50K, 100K, it'll be $1 billion a month soon, I'm sure. I saw a website, it was $1 trillion closure the other day, right? But, you know, if I look at my team, like Yash is tremendously ambitious, right? Wants to be a 7-figure earner, definitely has the capability. A lot of guys in the team just don't have an interest in it. You know, they have interest in other things. And so like they want to be at 20. So the moment they get to 20, like they're shutting down.
Right.
Like, boom, right? So, do you know what I mean? So like you have to, but forcing them to want more is impossible and aggravating for everybody because they'll say yes, but then won't do it. Right. And then, you know, so you end up going like, okay, cool. I've got my, you know, you kind of have to look at it like a coach and go, I've got my star player that wants to be an all-star. I've got my guy who needs to be off the bench. I've got my guy who's a role player. I've got my guy who can come in and back clean up. I've got a dude who does a ton of activity but kind of sucks at shooting, like a Russell Westbrook type character, just kind of all over the shop but fucking sucks at shooting. You know, so like how do I use these guys to my advantage? You know what I mean? And like create a team, you know, that's sort of well-rounded and gets the KPIs that I need. And I, like, for example, like, I'm rebuilding some things at the moment in the sales department where like, Yash has closed at over 50% on every funnel we've ever had, right?
Okay.
Like going
Yeah.
back for like a year and a half now. So no matter where I put in, it's 50%. So, if I don't do something with that information, like it's kind of crazy,
Yeah.
So like if I take someone like that, like I should just fill them up with 12 calls a day, have 8 show up and have them close 4 5 days a week, right? And he has an average cash collection of say $6,000. So the dude's gonna give me like anywhere from $20,000 to $24,000 a day every single day. Like why wouldn't I do that? But like, but that means he's not really gonna do follow ups, not really gonna do referrals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and then I have to sort of I have to be aware of that and bring someone in because I can't hold him to a standard of doing that stuff if I'm filling him up like that because he's so effective on the front. You know what I mean? So whereas someone who's not as effective, like I can't afford to bring somebody in to do that guy's confirmations and follow ups.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
And for you guys that don't know who Yash is like in his 20s. I think he's in his early 20s, right, Matt?
he's 18.
Hey, okay, so he's younger than that. You would never guess from meeting him. And the guy just crushes. He crushes sales. So that was one of the things I was intrigued by coming into 7th level is everybody there, like you get really, really good talent. So everybody there, when I've spoken to them, they say, well, I want to be a part of this, right? I want to be a part in growing this. And I don't see you guys going out and recruiting. Maybe you do, but I know everybody that I talk to wants to work for 7th level. How do you do that? I know it's not a one-liner, right? But what do you think
Well, no,
contributes to that?
I think if I like remove ego, a lot of it's just they think they can make money. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
the hot chicken's a bar, right? And maybe it'll be somebody else at some stage, like it was traffic and funnels, right? Like that's in the high
Yep.
ticket coaching space. Like everyone wanted to work there because it was a good opportunity. They had a ton of leads, you know what I mean? Like, so if you look at it from a selfish perspective, it's usually going to be someone who just thinks that they can make opportunity there, which is fair enough. Then from
Yeah.
a secondary perspective, I think you know, like it's a real product. Like, I mean, it's a real product, a real service with I think a really good like tangible benefit that a lot of people have seen results from, and a lot of the sales guys themselves can see results from, and so it's one of the only like sort of products that a sales guy can experience as a customer and then sell. Because it's just not,
Right.
like, unless you're gonna go out and buy a tractor and then sell a tractor, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like you can talk with a level of passion. So like most of the guys, if not all of the guys that we have been through some sort of form of our training and then have come in, you know what I mean? And I think like because they've learned that like, oh shit, like if I do this it works way better, then like why wouldn't you want to get more people on board for that, So and then I think like, me, Marco and Jeremy as individuals, like we speak to quite different demographics of people.
Yeah.
Jeremy very much invites like the more corporate sort of dude, and like they see stability in him in terms of like his profile and the company and all that kind of stuff. For me, people understand that I won't lie to them. Like I have sales reps come to me and they're doing like ridiculous numbers somewhere else, and I go, it's probably not going to happen here, Chance. Like if you want to do it, we can, but like you're on 35% scam comms. Like I can't compete with 35% scam comms. Like we're in a scam.
Right.
Like I actually have a cost of fulfillment. So like if you're here for the money, like you're in the wrong place because that is ridiculous. But it's gonna die. But like,
Right.
hey, ride it out. Do whatever you want, right? But if you come here, like this is the reality of what it's gonna be, and then people like seem to like that, and I think I think they can also tell that I think we take it a bit more seriously in terms of the business side of things than what most of the people do in the States.
And you mentioned in one of your past interviews that you hire a bunch of, well, you didn't say it like this, but you said that you hire ex-gangbangers and special forces guys. And the reason that you're able to do that is, the reason that you're able to do that is because you can manage them. How does someone manage, type A personalities like that, right? You've got people that generally question authority. What do you think you do different that you're able to handle those people?
They just don't seem to question my authority. it's a strange thing, man. Like, I think it's because like, I don't lie to them. So like, I always say, man, everyone has a sales rep. Like, the coolest thing about being a sales rep is like, you never have to lie to anybody. Like, you just present the case, right? And so like, I think being the XSF dude, I think being,
Yeah.
6'2" and, like 240, whatever, like, I think it definitely helps. But also like I have quite a, like a commanding presence when I come into like, scenarios. And so that's just kind of like, just the way that I am. And that has negative attributes as well.
Yeah.
Right. Like sort of like whenever I want to talk to my staff, I have to go, hey, don't worry, there's nothing wrong. I just want to speak about this. Like I have to say that, even though I never scream at people, I never get angry at people. I do the disappointed dad style. That's kind of how I roll. But, everyone still, you got to be the bad guy every now and then. But I really think it's like the honesty and like the feedback that I give those types of individuals is very clear. Because, and I think I empathize with some of the situations and I can sort of, like, I can tell why someone's acting the way they are, So, like, if you get someone who's been in prison for a long time, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to think everyone's out to get them. Right? Like, that's just how it's going to be. I mean, if you ever watch videos of dudes who just got out of prison and work out, they go do a workout, look around, and put their back to the wall, right? And they're in a gym, like they're at Crunch Fitness. You know what I mean? So, like, but like, that is a mentality of like, people are out to get me, And so if you don't kind of address that and be able to have a conversation about it and go, hey, dude, no one's here to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so be able to have those conversations and then be able to like firmly and fairly discipline people, and lay really clear expectations. Like the best manager that I've ever seen was a guy, I won't say his name because he's still active, but he was a guy in the military, and he used to do a really cool like interview whenever we came into his cell, right? And he would go, listen, first of all, he was a giant and he was terrifyingly dangerous as a human, right?
Yeah.
But, he never held a grudge. You could fuck up 30 times and like a day, he would punish you severely and then it was over. Like there was no grudges, which is huge because then you feel like, oh, okay, like this is cool because if you screw up and someone continually punishes you for the same thing, like you just hate them. And then you want to find ways around it, they say, right? And so, but this guy said, he goes, listen, there's three things and that's it. There's your career, right? Like you tell me where you want to go in your career and then I'll make the decisions that kind of get you where I think you need to go based on where you want to go. The second is your job. You just have to do your job. And I may have you do jobs that suck, but they're in the best interest of your career, right?
Yeah.
And then there's family. Everything trumps family. If you ever have a need, anything, like if you have to take time off or whatever, like for family, just tell us immediately. We'll figure it out. We'll cut it. If you ever use that as an excuse to not work, I'll fire you immediately.
Yeah.
Right?
And
he used to say something a bit worse than that because in the army, you obviously can't fire people immediately, but you know what I mean? But like, so, and that like really laid, I think, a really clear expectation of how that relationship's going to be. And then also to be like, mate, like, I'm not your friend, right? Like, that's not why we're here. Doesn't mean I won't be friendly, but like, when we're on the clock, like, this isn't going to be like friends. You know what I mean? And then I think if people understand the expectations, like, nothing should be surprising.
So obviously you have a lot of experience with managing sales team, but then you have people underneath you who also manage sales teams. Are you military style, just, hey, you do it and then you get promoted, hire the best? Or would you say that you want to bring somebody outside? And I guess the military does that too with like COs, right? They bring somebody outside to come. Which one would you prefer?
I mean, I think like, the big mistake that I've made is doing that is making the best salesperson the manager. That destroys your sales real quick. You know what I mean? And the person who's a really good manager is not necessarily a really good sales rep, and vice versa. You want someone who's competent in sales, but managing is a skill set in itself. You know what I mean? Like it's really, it's a way of doing things, and there's processes and systems around it. Sales coaching and sales like, being able to coach someone in sales is one small part of sales management, right? Lead scoring and routing and calendar management and processes are a much more effective skill rather than getting someone to think about an objection better, right? So, I think like the key is to find like someone who fits the manager bill,
Yeah.
and then, and I think like the military way of doing it is promoting people to a perpetual state of incompetence. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't met someone who's been, I mean, that's not true, but for the most part, the people who I've met who did 25 years in the military, like, would have been absolutely fucking incompetent at their job. Like, same as politicians, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
If you're in politics for 35 years, like, why didn't you get an awesome job in the private sector? Like, that doesn't make any sense because you should have
Right.
been doing. Oh, fair enough. Right? Like if you're really creative and really sort of like a high level thinker, the military is not the place for you.
Right.
That's not to say there aren't really creative and high level thinkers in the military, but for the most part, the people at the top, it's not the pointiest end of the spear. It's just the people who hung around long enough.
I have a couple questions. I'm gonna kind of switch gears towards CEO talk, right? Because we talked a little bit about sales management. So I'm gonna break down 3 categories: people that are under $1 million, right? So they probably don't have employees. Maybe they have a small team under $1 million. Then you have $1 million to 10 million, and then 10 million plus, right? So as you progress through each phase, what does your calendar look like? What are you focusing on as a CEO running a company from 0 to $1 million, probably doing a lot of sales, right? $1 million to 10, and then how does that switch once you go above $10 million?
Always caveat saying that like your product will dictate a lot of that.
Okay.
If you've got a super yacht and you're selling, so pricing is a big difference. Like, I think like revenue is a pretty good metric, but I think like, to be honest, like customer base is like a sort of one that really affects you more. Like, because if you have a business that does $10 million and you sell $3 widgets, my God, you've got a monster of a business.
Yeah.
Like
right.
you have a monster of a business. You know what I mean? Like you better strap in. Whereas if you got a high ticket coaching business with a 30K offer that does 10 million, like it didn't have to be that hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that could be 6 people. So I think like there's a few things on that, but I think generally speaking, like when you're in that smaller sector, like you are every position, and so like you sort of end up running around like a blue-ass fly doing everything from sales to marketing to to finance to admin to fulfillment and stuff like that. So it ends up you're just kind of all over the shop, and I think you're busy and productive, because you're getting a lot of stuff done. I think that's sort of the realm where most people end up staying. Well, most people never get to a million, but most people who do end up kind of staying around there because I think they try and outsource the wrong things. I run an outsourced sales agency. Sales should be one of the last things you outsource. Like, you should outsource marketing first, or finance or admin or whatever. Like, whatever you're worst at, I would do that. But also, like, you'll usually get, I think, a better output in outsourcing your marketing and then doing the sales yourself, and then from there outsourcing your, whether that's outsourcing or hiring, same sort of thing, having somebody else do it.
Right.
Because between the two, marketing is more important than sales, right? Like if you've got a metric boatload of amazing leads, you can have a bunch of monkeys fucking snatch the phones and scream like Wookiees. A few of them will die, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got 10 leads, you better be good. Yeah.
Right.
So I think like in the initial stage, you're just kind of running around, you know what I mean? And you probably you're not really a CEO. Like you're not really, I mean, like you can call yourself one, but like a true CEO, like if we have a look at like a traditional sense, is like not super busy. Like, Bob Iger or like they work a lot, but not busy. Like working a lot and being busy are different things. Like Bob Iger is not going to have meetings back to back all day.
Yeah.
Like it's just not, because what's a CEO there to do? A CEO is there to be like, it's the chief executive officer. So they're just the managers of the C-level, right? So your projects should all be long-term, right? Like they're all long-term sort of vision projects, not like visionary, because that's not like, but sort of things that are like far off that are doing like large strategic scale stuff. And then from there, like, but you're not going to be doing the doing. There's a team of people doing the doing. You're just making sure those things are on track. And then from there, you're, depending if you have shareholders or whatever, you might have different things to do. But essentially, like, when someone needs to call you, you need to be available. Right? You're the only person really that understands all the cogs that are happening at once. So it's not a case of diary space, it's a case of brain space. Like, you're just sort of, my father-in-law was the MD at the Bank of New York, right? And, of the Southern Hemisphere, so it's called Bank of New York Mellon. So he ran the entire Southern Hemisphere. And I remember, like, he would sit there in the middle of the day in the park, like, having, like reading the paper. It's like, what's going on here? Right? And he was like, I'm not supposed to, my job isn't to be busy. Like, you need brain time because, like, you're the one who has to put everything together and then go, yes, no. Like, in those yeses and nos, like, if you have a big team, like, there is significant impact to things. Yeah. So, like, you have to be able to intake a lot of the information. And so, I think once you sort of get up to levels where you're actually running as a CEO, like, it's a very different, very lonely. You don't really talk to many people, nor can you, right? Because you can do a lot of harm by stepping in, so you have to allow a lot of mistakes to be made that you see are mistakes. But if you step in, it will cause more chaos than the mistake, because your word trumps everything. Like, if John comes in, you got 3 people and you go to the guy in the middle and go, hey, do this. Then his manager says, hey, what are you doing? He goes, oh, John said. John said is the ultimate trump card. Like, it's like, fuck, right? So now that guy looks anemic. You don't have the context of everything that's going on in their world, right? You know the outcomes that you're looking for in some of the high level, but you don't have all the day-to-day, right? And so you end up kind of fucking things up. So, so it's sort of I think it's a very disciplined position that's, and a lot of people who are the founders of the business are probably not the people who are cut out to be it. And I think there's a big learning curve when it comes to actually doing it well. I see a lot of people call themselves a CEO, and like, it's a very difficult position in any company to do right, because you have to let a lot of things slide that are negative,
How do you balance the empty space where you are, leaving for problem solving or just thinking when you're an early company, right? So when when you founded, for example, Sales Sniper, and you guys are doing, between under 5 million a year, I guess, before you had, before you have a C-suite, right? How do you balance?
Yeah. You shouldn't have a C-suite for a long time. Don't hire a C-suite. The moment, because when you've got nowhere to put someone, if they are really good, right? So you hire, like, you're doing $1 million, $2 million a year, and you hire a COO. First of all, that person at 10 million is useless to you, right? And so, right, you know what I mean? Like, and then you're gonna have to fire them or demote them. Those are your only 2 options, because you need to bring someone in who's better. You know what I mean? So that's awkward. So bring people in at like VP level only. Okay. And then have a couple of positions above, or bring him in as director of operations or whatever. You know what I mean? That's a mistake that I made a bunch of times. Like, it's just a bad idea. But I think, like, the key is, like, you sort of don't, and you just sort of, like, you need someone. Like, I think it's helpful to have someone who is like a mentor, who's like unemotionally involved, to be able to like take that time to go, fucking stop. Like, this is the plan. This is what we decided upon. You do what the fuck you want, but like, that's not on the plan. That's a shiny object. If you want to do it, but like, you can't do all of these things. And so it's like, oh yeah, sweet. Like, and that's where, like, I think, having a plan for the year, having like a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, having it mapped out by the quarters, by the month, having your KPIs, your OKRs, your mind, like having all those things in place, like, they help you run the business, but they're like a good accountability measure to ensure that like you stick on the plan, because people like just divert the moment they see a fucking butterfly. So it's like, just stick to the plan, and you'll probably do a lot better.
Yeah. And the people that you mentioned, most people stay stuck, around $1 million a year. because they
Yeah.
outsource the wrong things, right? They try to outsource sales first. And that's one of the things that I've seen with coaching students is I'll have some that come on, they're like, a month in, they just go, I just want to outsource this. I'm not good at sales, right? Other than that, which seems like an obvious one, what do you think makes people stuck? What do you think is the big difference that takes people to 10 million that the people at 1 million are just not doing?
I think the planning stage is one, like actually planning out what does the business look like at 10 million and then how do you get there? Like, cause you got to stage it out. Like, I mean, but rarely do people do it. They don't really understand the numbers, like what's your return on capital employed? I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, mine's 326%. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So like, like not that you have to go that nitty gritty, but like, you want to have a good understanding as to what the numbers look like. Not every business makes sense at every level as well. Like you have to know like when the diminishing returns kick in. Coke has a limit. There is a limit. There's a time when too much Coke, it actually costs them money. There's a time for Tesla where more cars cost them money. There's a time for every single business where there is a diminishing return for the sale of each product, right? Which is called your marginal cost, right? The fixed variable and marginal cost, right? As soon as your marginal cost starts going up, then, there's a inflection point where it doesn't make any sense anymore. And so figuring some of that stuff out, and then like what other products am I going to have when they're going to be launched? Like I think really sitting down and mapping it out is really important. And then from there, like there has to be a reason for it. Like, if I have a look at like sales training, for example, like, I probably make less money personally at 100 million than what I would at 60, right? Potentially.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the point? Doesn't mean you don't do it. It just means that there's a pros and a con, right? And then also the other reason why they get stuck is because like there are just certain levels at businesses where like the profit is at the maximum. 300K a month for a coaching business is where it sits like at maximum profit, I think. And you don't really get that level of profit back for a while, This is and again, obviously price point dependent, but you see a lot of coaches say they have a, 20K off or whatever, like that, they get to $300,000 a month. The level of investment required to sort of get to that next level of 500 or a million, like you're not making that much money personally until you get to over $1 million a month again, so it's like, why? Just stay. It's like why Sam Ovens like went back and did what he did. He was like, fuck that. He went to $30 million a year and then dropped back down to $4 million a year because he made more money personally. And that makes sense. Sales Sniper, we used to have fucking tons of clients. And I was like, this is stupid. And so I ramped it down to like 3,
Yeah.
And we cut out 80% of our costs and cut out none of our profit.
Most of the headaches probably.
And then it just sits. But that client, that business makes, at the moment, that business is 400K a month on idle. Like, I mean, without even looking at it. I haven't looked at the books on that business in a fucking year. Like, because it is, I could fucking walk away from it right now, and that business makes 400K a month for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, it just is what it is. It doesn't require any effort on anyone's part, and we're going to ramp it back up a little bit this year because I have a really big client. But even that is not going to take me a tremendous amount of effort. You know what I mean? Right. So it'll probably take me 2 hours a week.
Yeah, and so you've been able to scale the 7th level and 7th level very quickly, right? What do you
Sales
think?
Sniper scaled just as fast.
It was
earlier. Yeah, we went from startup to 1.5 a month in 2 years.
Yeah, so what do you think contributed to the speed of the growth? But I mean, obviously you've got an incredible product, right? So it almost sells itself. Then you've got incredible salespeople to sell it for you. But I mean, what really contributed to the speed, and how are you able to maintain hiring people throughout that entire process? Because you guys have a relatively bigger staff now.
For me, it was for like Sales Sniper and the initial parts of 7th level was mainly due to like my content and sales ability.
Okay.
So like, cause I made all the sales for 7th level for the first 7 months, right? And then like, and a lot of them were high ticket guys that were following me and then saw Jeremy, realized he was amazing. And then they saw what happened when I did Jeremy stuff. So like, cause I had a name in the high ticket space, and then like Jeremy was obviously well known, but like the combination of the two of us for those first few months is what sort of took it up. Do you know what I mean? And like I was selling at 90%. I was fucking closing everyone, you know? So, and then but with Sales Sniper, like I was just a way better salesman, much more experienced than anyone else who had similar offerings, right? Like placement offers and like all the people that I was competing against. Like I didn't let the people off the phone. I would just close them there and then. Like I would objection handle hard on those calls, and they'd be like, yeah, we've had 3 other interviews. And I was like, sweet, well, this is your 4th. Like, here we are.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we have 2 more. No, you don't. You know what I mean? Like, like I would just sit there and I would sell. And none of those people did that. They didn't handle objections. They didn't sort of, you know, and so I just got account after account after account after account. And because I made everyone do outbound and I made everyone get referrals and I made everyone do the stuff that I did. And there was a culture of like, if you're on this team, you're a killer, right? And everyone held each other accountable. It was really interesting. Like obviously it's a lot smaller now and it's sort of, you know what I mean? But like there was a while there where like, fuck me, we had a good team. Like it was wild. Like, and everyone held themselves accountable and everyone held each other accountable. And it was like, the guys were just fucking good. It was really interesting. You know, and we did a few things that really diluted that, you know, that were like business decisions that not diluted it from like a personnel perspective, from a culture perspective, that were interesting. But like, you know, we made the adjustments we need to make and we did a good job of fixing it. And I would say that we're going through that process again at 7th level, kind of like reestablishing, you know, a really good culture in the sales team. And because like the business grows so fast and like when like it's a new business every 90 days essentially, because like, you know, we got 35,000 leads in October, right? Like that's a lot of leads, man. Like it's a big number, but then you think about it and you're like, fuck, Salesforce wouldn't get 35,000 leads. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like they might, but I mean, like, let's say they get 50. I mean, fuck me, they're $1 billion company. Maybe they get 100,000 leads a month. But like, Jesus Christ, we're a small little company. Got 35,000 inbound inquiries. You know, like that is fucking wild, man. And like tons of them, like 5,000 of them are just organic website inquiries.
That's incredible.
You know, we booked 5,000 booked calls. You know, like it is fucking crazy. And it's you know, and so it's so different that like none of the stuff that we sort of did in that high ticket space are sort of relevant anymore. And so we're having to shift to like a far more traditional sales model of like outbound close, like people doing their own stuff. Because there's such a huge volume. If you try and do it all through book calls, like you just end up being so inefficient. Like you have a 0.5% lead to sale ratio and it just doesn't make any economic sense after that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I know we've only got 5 more minutes. So I got 2 questions. Number 1, if you were, you know, back to however old you were when you were starting Sales Sniper, maybe you guys just got it off the ground, right? Doing under $1 million a month or under 5. What questions would you want to ask today's Matt Ryder that I didn't ask?
I think it's all gonna be okay, son. You know, I think if it's sort of like asking, like, I guess, what do you wish you knew, right? I think what I wish I knew is like the importance of vision, mission, and values.
Yeah.
Like the actual importance of like that side of things and like how that can really affect the decision making of the business. And then like how to stay. I wish I would have stayed more on track with the business model because like we did tons of useless side projects.
Okay.
And you know, so it's like, and these days it's very hard to get me to do anything. You know.
Got it. Yeah.
Like, and like the money, it has nothing to do with it. Someone's like, hey, we could do this and make $5 million a month. I'm like, cool, man. Like, there's a lot of things you could do to do that. You know what I mean? Like, do I want to do that? No. Does it sound like fun? Not particularly. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So yeah, that's the big thing. It's like vision, mission, and values. Like really taking note of that, and then just staying on track. Like, Is it part of the plan? No. Okay. Probably don't need to do it then.
Got it. Awesome, man. So, where can people find out more about 7th level, more about Sales Sniper? And if somebody wants to join your team, if they want to get in the long line of people that want to be a part of 7th level,
We're hiring at the moment. We're trying to hire 17 more people right now. So.
Okay, so how would they go about doing that? What would be the easiest way for them to do that?
There's a ClickUp form somewhere. Reach out to me on Facebook. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
If not, I think you can. There's a couple ways. You can go to the Sales Sniper website, and there's like a Become a Savage, and I think you can apply to be a sales rep there. I think there's also a similar link on the 7th level website, which is 7thlevelhq.com.
I'll get that from you, and I'll put it in the show notes. And then where can people find out more about you?
Man, I'm so bad on social media these days. I post like once a month. But you can, if you want to do some back content, go to Matt Ryder on YouTube and Real Matt Ryder on Instagram. I don't even have Instagram on my phone anymore though, so I post every now and then. Yeah, I'm working. Man. Yeah,
I like it.
I'm working. Yeah.
Well, man, this has been incredible. I really appreciate you coming on. I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else is going to learn a lot. That's all we have. Thanks again, guys.